Hello everyone, this is Shannon from That's So Po, and today I'm doing week 49 of my 2020 reads. This week I read a few good picture books, some great works by indigenous authors, and I DNF'd one book. So first I'll start with the picture books that I finished, all of which were recommendations from Priscilla at Bookie in her Latinx picture book recommendation video, so I will link that below. Do check it out. The first book of this that I finished was Federico and the Wolf by Rebecca J. Gomez, illustrated by Elisa Chavarri, and I loved this. This was so good. It was so sweet. It's basically a Little Red Riding Hood retelling, and it is about a little boy, Federico, who goes to the market to pick up ingredients for making pico de gallo with his grandfather, and I loved this. It is everything that I want in especially like a Latinx story: food and family and language and being together and making things. It's just so sweet, and it's all done in rhyme, and there's this kind of really just cute, fun aspects of Federico and the ingredients used to make pico de gallo and how he fights against the wolf. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and I loved the art style so much. I thought it was really cute, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Freedom Soup by Tami Charles, illustrated by Jacqueline Alcantara. This is sort of a mixture between family and cooking again, but also history. So this is telling the story of a grandmother and a child who are making freedom soup. So it's talking about the ways that you make freedom soup, but also about the history of freedom soup, which is tied up with the history of the freedom of Haiti. And so this book is sort of part recipe and part history of revolution. I think that the content of this was really cool, but sometimes it did go just a little bit into too much detail, especially like the ingredients of the soup or the exact details of what the revolution was. The art style wasn't 100% my style, but I still loved the movement and I loved what the book was saying. So I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. And the last picture book that I read was Queen of Tejano Music, Selena by Silvia Lopez, illustrated by Paula Escobar. This is a nonfiction biography of the singer Selena, who was really influential in the 80s, 90s in Tejano music. I definitely knew who Selena was, but I didn't know very much about her biography, and this was wonderful. First of all, Paula Escobar is an amazing artist, so the artwork in this is stunning, and I really loved how she used all of these outfits for Selena that are from, you know, various things that Selena was shown to do, especially because Selena was a fashion designer as well. So this book was so cool, just talking about her history, talking about her family. I loved the artwork, I loved just the biography. It was actually a lot more detail than is typical for kind of younger picture books. So this, even though it's a picture book, I'd say it just edges a little bit older, but it was really fascinating learning about her life. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I learned a ton from it. I thought the artwork was beautiful, and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I finished the poetry collection When My Brother Was an Aztec by Natalie Diaz, who is a queer Latinx Mojave author, and I loved this. This was so good. Previously, I had read her other poetry collection, Postcolonial Love Poem, and this one was just as good, and maybe in some senses even spoke to me a little bit more. There were just so many poems about, I think, dealing with her brother who she lost to drug addiction and the impact that his drug addiction had on her family, as well as a lot of issues just facing the indigenous community and a lot of things related to being a woman and being queer. I really like Natalie Diaz's poetry. It is very powerful, very strong in the way that it uses imagery and allusions to other texts. It does go over my head quite a bit, but I really enjoy it. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I think I will do a standalone review for her 2 poetry collections later on this week. Next, I finished a play called Dead White Rider on the Floor by Drew Hayden Taylor. I don't usually read plays, but I heard about this one from Brody at Brody, who I will link below. And I just was intrigued by the premise of it, which is basically that there are these characters who are from white writers, things like Pocahontas and Tonto and Injun Joe and things like that. And they are in a room with a dead white writer who has been trying to, continue writing their stories. And they're trying to figure out, well, what do we want our stories to be? And I thought that premise was so cool, so I picked up this play and it was really great. I should have known from the title, it's a comedy. So this is very funny. It's got a lot of humor in it, but it also has a lot of very serious content talking about the way that indigenous people are represented in literature and how they want to be represented, and also talks a lot about some of the issues that face modern indigenous people and how there's a lot going on in here, and I still am unpacking a lot of what this play was saying. It's got a lot of layers to it. So I thought this was really, really good, even though some of it went over my head. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. And if you like plays at all, I definitely recommend this one. So those are all of the books that I finished this week, although I did DNF one book, which was The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. Now, if you know me and you know what this book is, you'll be surprised that I even picked it up, and you are right. The reason why I DNF'd this is because of the violence. So this is a horror novel that is about these 4 Blackfeet men who basically have done some bad things while hunting, and now kind of an elk woman is out to get them. This book is something that Sush, my husband, read and really, really liked. He likes horror, and he thought that I would really like what this book was doing, what it was talking about. I was a little bit cautious because I don't like violence, I don't like gore, I don't like anything like that. And I'd heard from a couple of friends like Ashley at Don't Have a Degree in Reading, who I will link below, who had read this, that it was pretty graphic. But Sush said he would read it out loud to me and skip over the graphic bits. So we actually got pretty far into this book. We got to 77%. And I realized that although he was just skipping over the graphic bits, so I didn't have to like experience that, even just the knowledge of what was happening and the deaths was just too much for me. It was just so violent. So even though I think that this book is super cool in terms of what it's talking about, in terms of this discussion of respecting a lot of traditions and respecting a lot of kind of what you're doing when you go hunting and these sorts of things. There's a lot of really interesting discussions in here about modern indigenous kind of communities and culture and things like that. So it's doing a lot of cool stuff, but the violence was definitely too much for me. And I have a feeling that all the graphic scenes would have been way too much for me as well. So if you're somebody who likes horror and can handle violence and gore, this might be a great book to read because it does talk about some interesting things. But if you are at all squeamish, probably don't pick this one up. Okay, so that's everything that I read this week. If you guys have read any of these books, if you have any thoughts, any recommendations, any comments, anything like that, go ahead and leave me a comment down below.